Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at the OET Speaking Exam. As you know, the speaking exam is about 20 minutes long and you need to do a role play with the examiner where you will play your profession and they will play, for example, a patient or maybe a carer or maybe one of the patient's relatives. But before this actually starts, there are going to be some introductions and also some warm-up questions. This is allow you to relax and to become familiar. This is to allow you to get used to the examiner's accent and voice and make sure you can understand each other. So let's have a look at what the introduction will involve. So when you go inside the exam room, you'll obviously greet each other with good morning or good afternoon. The examiner will say what their name is. So when you enter the room, there will be introductions first of all. So obviously you'll greet each other with good morning or good afternoon. The examiner will say what their name is and they'll ask you for your name. They'll then ask you for your candidate number and to see your ID. They'll ask you to sign the form and they'll also confirm which test you are taking. So whether it be for nursing, for medicine, for dietetics, or for another health profession. So some useful things to remember during this part are to smile, are to be confident, to think about your body language and your posture. Try to relax during this part. Of course, you're going to be nervous, everybody is, but try to relax. Try to get into the right positive mind frame that you're going to do the very best job that you can. Once the introductions are over, the examiner will start to ask you some questions. This is the warm-up phase. Here's a list of questions that they might ask you. We'll go through them one by one. The first one is, can you tell me about your professional background? So this is something that you can think about before you take the exam. What can you tell them about your professional background that uses a good range of vocabulary and grammar? How can you answer this in the best way possible? So to just answer this question with, I am a vet, is not a very good answer. This shows very basic grammar and vocabulary. Try to use this opportunity to show the examiner your level. Just try to respond in a natural way. Give them some highlights of your career. Tell them about some of the moments that you're proudest of. Let's look at the next question. What made you choose to become an optician? Again, try to think about the different grammar that you could incorporate into this answer. Yes, of course you can use past simple. But could you answer with present perfect? I have always known that I've wanted to become a doctor since I was a child. I remember a moment in my childhood when I was... Think about these questions before you go to your exam. Another question they might ask is, what does that involve? So they're asking for more details about your profession. Can you use some more technical English to describe what your job actually involves? Can you describe some of the procedures in a little bit more detail? Can you describe some of the challenges that you face? Can you talk about some of the obstacles that you've overcome? Another question that they might ask is, can you tell me about your training? So you can talk about the education that you've completed, the different certificates, and maybe training once you graduated as well. Again, keep thinking of the best vocabulary and grammar that you can use whilst maintaining a very natural approach. This is important in the OET speaking exam. The examiner might ask you what the best thing about your job is. So make sure you're prepared to talk about what you think is the best aspect of your job. Similarly, they might ask you what the worst thing is about your job, so make sure you've got some examples up your sleeve and you're prepared to talk about these. Another question is, can you tell me about a typical day in your job? So you don't just want to be listing one activity after another in present simple tense, but you can think about how you might answer this by giving some examples of your day recently, by explaining how no 2 days are the same and why that's the case. And finally, a very simple question is, where do you work? So you might talk about the setting in which you practice your profession. So if it's a hospital, talk about the hospital. If it's another setting, talk about it. Now remember, this section of the exam is to warm up and to get used to the examiner. But it's also good to show them your level of English. But it's also good for you to get used to being relaxed whilst you speak to the examiner, to think about things like eye contact and body language. Please do comment below about what you found useful about this video. In future videos, we'll look at some of the speaking role plays in more detail with some sample questions so that you can practice. Thank you very much for listening today. I hope it's been useful. If you've got any questions, please do feel free to get in touch. You can write a comment down below. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and you can contact us through there as well.